which is lives, works, or owns property. But the neighborhoods can move that, define it, add to it, give one little piece to one group but not to another, and there's no consistency citywide. So the discussion, and in fact in the discussion, some people said, I think it should be tighter, not looser, and we could see it going that way as well.
But the idea is to make it, the definition of stakeholder, a standard definition in every neighborhood.
Consistency, I think, was more the goal than even what the specific definition was.
If somebody is a stakeholder that just has coffee in the neighborhood once every year, then the voters can determine, gee, this person's not really enough of a stakeholder to have a position on the board, and therefore, one would hope they wouldn't get elected.
That person is a voter. You made that person a voter.
Exactly, but I'm just saying the voters, when they come out, they can say, this person doesn't have enough of a stake in the community, I don't think this person should be on the board.
Makes me a stakeholder. If I can prove that you don't have coffee at Starbucks, your stakeholder declaration is invalid.
But in the 5 years or 6 years that the neighborhood council's been in operation, what's the reality of the stakeholder status? I mean, we can keep it as broad as we want, but in reality, who really shows up to vote, who shows up to do the work, and who shows up to be on the board? And what I see is it's much narrower than this huge, broad definition.
Well, the reality, as you know, as every study has indicated, is that primarily older white homeowners are who are participating. But older white homeowners were who were participating before the system. And the entire point of the neighborhood council system, as we understood it, was to broaden participation beyond.
But you've had 5 years, and I don't think I can't say it. Most neighborhood councils are not hiding over in a corner, not letting people know. They're doing every kind of outreach possible, and people other than the people who have always had a stake in the community and continue to have a stake, they are the majority of who is showing up.
The biggest problem we have that it's not, as you said, it's not the same across the board. And by making it so broad, you're leaving it the same. It's
not leaving it the same because in some neighborhoods certain people can't vote and certain people can't. So that would be very different.
okay. So you're opening it up.
Yeah, it's opening it up.
Which in a way was kind of odd because while geographically we have the same name as somebody else, our issues were actually very different, which is why we even bothered to try to get a neighborhood council. Many of our people were renters. The people up on the hill were actually homeowners. And so we really thought very hard about exactly who's the stakeholder. We went though with the bylaw suggestions that we'd been given, and that put us into a position where those who are ambitious and lazy will go and grab a bunch of kids in a club or something and say, well, you didn't say anything about age for voting. These kids kind of live here, or they come and do a soccer game here, and so they can be stakeholders. And it was at that point that we really started to think very, very seriously about the whole stakeholder issue, and felt that the city was not really giving us the backup and assistance with the very complicated issues that we were facing.
Don't agree with it, just a residential definition. I feel like what we'd end up being is a glorified residential association, and I don't think that was the intention. I think businesses have a large stake in the community, especially small business owners who don't have the kind of power and voice that a large corporation.
Somebody say,
Can any employee of a business in your model, or just the owner? Is it really about having either an economic or residential stake?
It's a stake. I mean, if you on any of the things that we go up for, who's going to show up pro or con? If you have to go to the picket line, who's going to go out there? And it is somebody who has a genuine stake, who is not going to be here for a couple months and then moving somewhere else. I believe if you whether you rent, own a house, or own a business, you have a stake in that community.